China is accusing the U.S. of pushing false information about the coronavirus origins. NBC News correspondent Janice Mackey-Frayer has the latest from Beijing.
Allison, the back and forth of accusations and conspiracy theories about accusations continues here as China accuses the U.S. of a smear campaign in suggesting that the virus is linked to a lab in Wuhan. They say the U.S. is merely trying to ensure that President Trump gets reelected. Officials here deny that there is any evidence linking the virus to a lab in Wuhan. This contradicts the claims by Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, who says there is enormous evidence. Editorials here are attacking him. They're calling him a liar. They're calling him names that are less diplomatic. They're even attacking his religious values. China was already in the midst of a global PR campaign to deflect criticism over its handling of the virus by sending masks and equipment to several countries and even floating its own theories about the origins of the virus, linking it to the U.S. military. Secretary of State Pompeo has not backed down from his claim that the virus came from a lab in Wuhan, despite intelligence reportedly shared by the Five Eyes network of the UK, the US, Canada, New Zealand, and Australia that contradicts the claims by the Trump administration that the virus is linked to the lab in Wuhan. China today declared the entire country at low virus risk for the first time since the outbreak. New cases are near zero. There have been no new deaths for nearly 3 weeks. And even the trade data that was released today wasn't as brutal as expected. Officials here say they're open to working with the World Health Organization on virus tracing, but that they're not going to get involved in any investigation that starts with China being guilty. The back and forth of accusations is putting a strain on U.S.-China relations like never before. There is still a lot that we don't know about the virus, how it spread, and how it became a pandemic. What is clear is that China is working very hard to deflect blame at a time when calls for investigations, inquiries, and compensation are growing even louder. Allison?
Nearly 40,000 Texas inmates are under strict lockdown restrictions after COVID-19 cases spread in prisons there. They are not allowed to leave their cells for meals or walks outside, and they can't make phone calls. NBC News correspondent Morgan Chesky joins us now. And Morgan, we know visitation also stopped in mid-March. This is a new level of isolation for prisoners. You've been reporting that prison chaplains are trying to help ease that isolation. What are they doing?
Yeah, Allison, it's certainly kind of an unprecedented situation for these inmates because lockdowns only are held for short periods of time, an hour or two, maybe a day. But with COVID-19 spreading throughout these prison populations, as soon as it pops up in one of these prison units, a 2-week lockdown immediately goes into place, and that is extended if and when a new case of COVID-19 pops up. So, as you mentioned, no one's leaving the cell. Food is being brought to them. They can't walk outside, and they can't make those phone calls, which is how many of them communicate with loved ones and just check in, if nothing else, with those on the outside. So in response, I had a chance to speak with the head chaplain for the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, and he and his team came up with the idea. It's simple, really, but it requires a lot of manpower of handing out notes to inmates. They write down a loved one's name, their phone number, and any sort of message that they're trying to pass along. In turn, those chaplains categorize these notes by prison unit and divide them up, and then they just start making phone calls. Allison, I had the head chaplain tell me he's probably made several hundred calls since they've started this program of sorts, using staff from all over the Criminal Justice Department. They've made about 32,000 phone calls, sharing all sorts of information, good and bad, with people who are on the outside, wondering how their loved ones are doing on the inside, and vice versa. Allison?
What an incredibly compassionate thing to do, Morgan. That is just amazing. I know you were in Huntsville, Texas yesterday, reporting on an outbreak there. How widespread is the coronavirus in the Texas prison system, and how are officials handling testing and treatment?
Now, they certainly have significant obstacles ahead of them because we've seen firsthand how prisons are acting as hotspots for the coronavirus. Right now, the Texas prison system consists of about 140,000 inmates that are spread out over more than 100 units across the state. The officials are saying that a third of all prison units, roughly give or take, are currently in that lockdown mode because of the presence of COVID-19. And we know that one of the issues going forward is just trying to contain it within such a controlled environment where no one can get in and no one can get out, which you would think would make it easy, but in turn, it just allows the virus to move among the prison population. On their part, the officials say that they've tested right at about 1,700 inmates who presented symptoms, and then of the number that they tested, 70% came back positive. Now, that's only about 1% of their entire prison population. So as soon as you are tested, as soon as you have tested positive, they take you to the infirmary, you're kept in medical isolation, and then as soon as you're able to, you're taken back to your cell and you're kept there essentially until you're no longer well, you're kept there anyway, Allison, but that is where you stay, and they check on you medically to make sure that, of course, should you need hospitalization, they'll absolutely receive that. But when critics called them out for not testing in larger quantities, they said that their response to the virus wouldn't necessarily change whether they did mass testing, as they're doing in Ohio, or if they're testing just those with symptoms, as they're doing right now. Allison?
Morgan, it's an incredibly challenging situation trying to curb that virus in prisons. Thank you so much for your report.
Thanks, Allison.
We might be another step closer to a coronavirus vaccine. The FDA has approved a potential vaccine from drug maker Moderna for a phase 2 trial this morning. The company says a first batch could be ready as soon as 2021. Dr. Clyde Yancey, chief of cardiology at Northwestern University, is joining me now. Dr. Yancey, it is great to have you back with us. A lot of news about vaccines this week. Pfizer said it might have one ready by September. Today, Moderna says their vaccine could be ready as soon as next year. How significant is it for a vaccine to get approved for phase 2 trials?
So, Allison, thank you again for continuing these important conversations. The vaccine really is a pathway, an avenue for us to think about how we can liberalize life again. We're really talking about how do we achieve immunity? We can either have natural immunity because we've had the illness and developed our own antibodies, or the vaccine can help us achieve immunity. It's exciting to see how science has come together so quickly to really accelerate the development of vaccines into months rather than years. But we really need to level set expectations, Allison. There's a lot that has to go on here. Are the vaccines safe? If they're safe, do they actually work? And do they generate an antibody response, the key ingredient in having immunity that is protective? Lots of work needs to be done.
I know, as you referenced there, I mean, creating vaccines is a years-long, potentially decade-long process. The doctors and researchers are trying to do so quickly right now. Many experts are saying that we need to prepare for a second wave of the coronavirus potentially in the fall. Do you think it's possible that we could see a vaccine before that second wave, or is that just unreasonable and far too quick?
Allison, I think the key word you use is prepared. We need to be prepared for a second wave, no matter how big or small. We need to prepare for the introduction of a vaccine, but understand that it won't be a full-on introduction. We'll start with the highest risk groups and then do it iteratively. So preparation is key. It will take some time.
Dr. Francis Collins, director for the National Institutes of Health, testified in the Senate today on testing. I'd like to play what he said.
As America moves back into public spaces but seeks to avoid increased infections with COVID-19, tests have to be more accessible, ideally to people at the point of care, to make it easier for everyone to get tested. We need tests that don't require hours or days to determine results. The new types of tests need to be sensitive enough to flag asymptomatic individuals who may have just become infected and don't even know it yet.
Dr. Yancey, where would you say we are on testing right now? And when do you reasonably think that we can get where we actually need to be?
Well, clearly we're not where we need to be. And I know Dr. Collins and respect him greatly. And I think he's outlined what our goals should be. We need a rapid turnaround test that's available on demand, on site, that is widely deployable, because all of the places where there's been success, the success has been driven by access to mass testing. So we know who does and who doesn't have the virus, and we can appropriately protect each other. So I agree, we have a lot of room to go, but there's a lot of technology being applied to this. Again, science has really stood up brilliantly to help us uncover ways to challenge and overcome this virus.
A question for you that we continue to get from viewers. If we are wearing masks in public, they want to know, why do we still need to social distance?
So this is an excellent question, and let's be very deliberate with the answer. The best protection is social distancing. We know that this virus does not transmit very far, particularly when you're outside, only a matter of feet. So 6 feet seems to be a reasonable window. But if we can't accomplish a 6-foot space between us and other people, the mask is our next protection. The mask plus distancing gives us another level of protection. But don't think it's either or. It really should be both, but particularly if we can't practice appropriate social distancing, a minimum 6 feet.
Finally, Dr. Yancey, you're a cardiologist. People are still having heart attacks. They are still having strokes during this pandemic. The American Heart Association is now running ads encouraging people to call 911 if they experience symptoms. Are you seeing evidence where you are that people are hesitant to come to the ER with true emergencies? And what do you say to folks who may be thinking, there is no way I am going to a hospital right now?
Allison, all of us are seeing evidence of this. Even today, I spoke to a dear patient about coming to the hospital just for testing, and it just wasn't on their radar screen. We have to work very hard to communicate that we've gone above and beyond to make certain that our facilities are safe, and to be very much careful about what recommendation we make. That is, who needs to come and who can continue to be cared for via telemedicine format. But as I've said before, we are open for business, not for the economic reason, but for the health reason, to take care of people that are having difficulties. We know they're out there. We're starting to see them come in. They can't stay away any longer. We want to be available. We want to help. Please let us help. Call the phone, call the numbers, come to visit us. Let us know how you're doing. We are ready to go.
Dr. Yancey, I always find our interviews with you so reassuring. You give so much wonderful information to our viewers. Thanks for coming back to talk to us. I know we'll be seeing you again soon.
Thanks so much. Appreciate you very much. Have a good day. Stay safe.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here, and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.